All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Happy eCoach Day. Today, I'm excited to talk to you about Creator Plus within Brightspace and how this can work in elementary. Before we dive in, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Bridget Connolly. I'm the manager for the Global Success team here at D2L. Prior to joining D2L, I was a secondary school teacher in Ontario, where I live, and I joined D2L about 3 years ago. So I do have an agenda today, but I do want to call out that I really want today to be kind of a workshop. So it's going to be a very fluid agenda. So Creator Plus, if you haven't started using it in Brightspace just yet, there's a lot to it. There's a lot of different components, different practices, different elements. And I'll show you what those look like today. But I think really where the value comes is from you figuring out how this will work for you in your class, creating actual lessons. And so I want to make sure I give time for that today. And then we can answer questions as you're working through that. So I will talk about what Creator Plus is, what tools feed into Creator Plus, how that works. I will do a demo and show you some examples and some resources, but I will have some time through all of that for workshop and for you to play with it. So that will be the bulk of what we're doing today, just to make sure you can get any questions that you have answered and really find some value in how it can work for you. So just some best practices to be aware of, because I know this question will come up and I want to address it right off the bat. And I also want to have this slide here for you that if you're looking at these slides later, you have this as a reference. Some best practices for copying portions of Creator Plus currently. If you are going to copy the elements piece, and I'll show you how to do all of this once we're in our demo, but if you're going to copy the elements piece, you will copy the source code from one course to another using the source code button. And I will show you what that looks like. I always preface with that I'm not a developer. I'm not a very mathematical person. So this sounds a lot more complicated than it is. It's really just copying and pasting. And I'll show you what that looks like. To copy practices, currently right now, the best practice for this is to use our import export copy components tool to bring it in from one course to another and include the course files. Practices, because they have a little bit more to them, do require that tool, and the copy and paste doesn't work quite as well. So again, I'll show you what this looks like, but I wanted to have this here for your reference. And just note that if you're copying pictures, you need to copy the actual image with the HTML file. So even if you're copying an element, but it has a picture, I would recommend doing import export copy and bringing in the associated file. That way the picture can be in your Brightspace files. I will show you what this looks like. I just wanted to have this here because it's always a question that comes up. High level, what Creator Plus is. The intention behind it was to empower anybody to be a creator. So you don't need to have a graphic design background or learning creative services to know how to build fun content. It should be something that you can just do easily within your course. The goal is to make learning experiences fun and interactive and have some gamification pieces for students as they're working through their courses, whether it's completely online or in person or just on their own time. Can reimagine the learning with some videos and speed up creation process for yourself while building confidence with the skills. So the idea is that if you make something today, you can copy it and bring it year over year and edit it if you need to, but you don't need to be rebuilding beautiful content every year. With Creator Plus, there's two portions to it. The first is practices, which are meant to enhance comprehension and keep learners engaged with wide variety of exercises and question types, and I'll break that down a little bit more in a second. And then the second component is elements. So this is flexible and accessible interactive elements, again, that you don't need any coding skills for. And again, I'll show you what both of these look like. Practices. So the goal of this, again, is to ensure important concepts are grasped and keep learners excited with a wide variety of question types in the practices tool. The practice question types are fill in the blanks, multi-select, multiple choice, sequencing, sorting, and true and false. So again, just to reiterate what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you examples of how this looks. I'll create one for you, and then you have time to practice this on your own. That way you can see which ones work for you, which ones you can input right into your course right away. And then elements, they are meant to be delightful content by inserting flexible and user-friendly interactive elements in your course, again, without any coding skills. So the elements that we have are accordions, tabs, click and reveal, call out, the timeline, stylized quote, and flip cards. We'll break down what those look like in a little bit as well so you can see them. I'm not going to play this, but I just wanted to record a quick video of some examples of how this looks in a course. So this is just a video, there's no sound to it, that I recorded, that if you're going back to this slide deck later and you just wanted to see some examples of how this has worked, there's some examples for you there. So of course, Brightspace and Creator Plus work well in a remote or an online environment, but it also has been working really well in the classroom if you're using it for blended learning. Some ways that we've seen this happen is for practice, for tests, for having students review the information to prepare. So if you have a test coming up or a quiz or just some work that you need them to practice, they can do that right within Creator Plus and Brightspace. Activities for those to work together at the beginning of the day. So this is a great way that if students come into the class, you can have this up on the board, work through it together. I had a teacher tell me that she starts every morning with a sequencing activity, and students have it on the board and they need to work together to figure out where it should all go. And so as a minds-on activity, gets the students thinking, could also be done when they come in from recess to kind of calm them down and be brought in through there. And then also work for those who finish a test early to complete the activities. So there's always that time where students finish a test before others and they have some time to work through something. So you can use Creator Plus with that. And if you did a quiz within Brightspace, you can always set a release condition that it will automatically release for them once it's there. I see a question or a hand has come up. I just want to make sure I'm addressing that. Oh, I believe the questions, oh, thanks, Morgan. Yeah, so this is being recorded. The slide deck will be shared out. So that should all be there for you. Okay, so I know I saw some comments about some people coming in late. So just to explain what we're going to do now, I'm going to show you what some examples look like. I'll create an element, give you some time to practice the elements by yourself. I'll show you how to copy them, come back together. We'll do the same for practices. So to first show you some examples of how this has worked, I'm going to show you some K-6 examples. This is one that has been created about seasons. So they have made this a piece of content, as you will do as well. So an HTML document is where Creator Plus lives. You can insert your elements, insert practices, insert text, just like you would create a regular piece of content. You can bring in the Creator Plus elements into here. So this is an example of a lesson about seasons. I've got the learning goals there. If students click on this, there's a video that pops up. You could put in whatever you'd like there. It could be an image, text, anything from the Brightspace editor there, so they can watch that video right within there. We've got our tabs. So this is an element called tabs. So I can click through and see some videos about the different seasons, and students can interact with that there. And then here, this is our first example of a practice. So this is our sortable one. So I can drag through and see which season this falls within. So students can bring this to where it needs to be and check their answers and see how they've done there. So if students don't get it right, they can try again and bring those to the correct spots and continue to do that. If you have students who use a screen reader or an assistive device, this keyboard action will read this aloud to them. So just making sure that you're putting alternative text on the images if you're using images so that those images can be read aloud to students. Another example of a lesson here. So this one is about the human impact on the environment. So I've got some big ideas and some questions, some different videos here. So students can click through and see both of those. Here we've got, this is an example of a timeline element used in a different kind of way. So just 2 different points there. We've got our accordions. So this element is called an accordion, where students can click the text, take it away when they're done with it, and can have information in there. The information in this box here, you could make it whatever you'd like it to be. So it could be a text, video, pictures, whatever you'd like it to be, a video note as well. This is another example. This one was created for a rotating stations. So students can use the Google Slides here to click on things, but they also can go through to see their different stations that they have to work through with our accordions here. Another example of the accordions, we've got a choice board where students can click through and see the choice for their assignment of what they would like to do. And then I want to show this one. So this is a practice here where you can go through and see the different drop downs for fill in the blanks. And this one I'll show once we get to the practices part, but students have to fill in the blanks with the correct spot here. So I can go through, put in the answers that I need, and then can see how I've done as a student. And I can try again if I need to. I've also got, again, our sortable ones here, and it tells me how many sortable items there should be. So if students are putting multiple things in here, they can see that they've got too many in there. Can check the answers, see that they didn't do all that well, and can try again. We've also got a multiple choice practice in here as well. Can check the answer, try again, and continue to work through that. So that's just some examples of some practices. And then the last one here is just that I can click on this to watch a video, and I've got some additional text within there. So you can make things as big or as small as you'd like them to be. Okay, so I know that was a lot of different kind of examples. We're going to spend some time creating now and playing around with this. So we're going to start with elements and just practice building our elements. And I'm going to show you what an example of one looks like first, and then we'll have some time to build on our own. So if you are going to use Creator Plus, the first thing you'll need to do is create new or go to an existing HTML document and edit it. So go to HTML document. And just like a regular piece of content, you can give this a title. You can add a due date, add your availability date. So just as you would any other piece of content. I'm going to give this some more space here. So I'm going to go to full screen. And then Creator Plus is a little bit hidden in our bar. The place to find it is here, insert other options. So when I click on this, you'll see that insert practice and insert element come up. And I do just want to note that I have screenshots of a walkthrough of how to get to these steps in the slide deck that's being shared out. So just in case you're going through this later and you forget where it is, they're all in the slide deck. So again, there's two different parts. There's the practices and the elements. We're going to start with our elements here. So when I click on insert element, my options for our elements come up. So these were the same ones that I mentioned earlier. We have accordion, tabs, click and reveal, call out, timeline, stylized quote, and flip cards. I'm going to show an example of creating a flip card, but when it's time for you to build one, do whatever makes sense for your course and what can be relevant for you. So if I go to flip cards here, I can add some instructions. It's going to default the instructions to select each item to learn more. I'm going to build a lesson about frogs. So I'm just going to say about frogs, but you can leave the text as you would like it, or build out some different text if you want to start fresh with some instructions. As you're going through this, if you have questions about how things work, the little question marks help us along the way. And you can add as many flip cards as you would like. So you'll notice it's going to default to just have one here. I can have up to 4 in a row, and it does change the size of the flip cards there. But I can add as many different rows as I would like. And also if you want them to be odd numbers between there, it doesn't always need to be 4. It's up to you how you want to build that out. You can also delete if you have added too many and you need to get rid of some. For the sake of this example, I'm just going to do 2 here. And I'm going to start by adding some information on my front. So you can go to the front or the back of the flip card. You'll notice that you can add the same type of information to either one. So both front and back, you can add a title, image, or content, or all or none. The reason for that is you could add a ton of information on one side, have just a picture on the other side, have both of information, whatever you choose to do. It's up to you how you want to use those, so both options are there for you. So I'm going to add this as a title of a tadpole, and I'm going to insert an image here. So I'm going to grab an image from my computer of a tadpole and add in some alternative text here. So just for the screen reader to describe what this is. If it is just a decorative image, you can always just check that off so that the screen reader will just skip over it, and I can save that there. So now I've got my image put in. I can close that. I could add in some content here if I would like to, but I'm going to add my text onto the back. So on my front, I'm just going to have my title and my image, and then on the back, I can have title, image, and content again, but I'm just going to add some content here and say a tadpole is, and add some more content there. And then same over here. This one will be about a frog. I can add in another image. My alternative text again. And can save that. And then again, I'm just going to add a frog is. And then the most important part with elements is to insert it. You'll notice there's no insert button right here. So what you need to do is select preview. It's going to show you an example of how this will look for students. I can flip the card so I can see that on my front, I've got my image and just the title. And then on the back, I've got my text there. If you want to add more or switch things around, you can always go back, or from the preview point, you can insert here. So I can select insert, and I've got that there. Again, I could continue to add text around this, add videos, video notes, add in practices, build this out if I would like to, or have it as a standalone piece there. And if you ever need to edit this, so maybe you only start with the one flip card and you want to come back and add more later, if you click on the item, the little pencil button here allows you to edit. Okay, perfect. And just before we go and spend some time practicing this on our own, I want to show you how to copy the elements. So this is that source code that I was mentioning. So if I am in this course and I want to bring this piece to another course, if I have my images, I should use the import export copy. If I didn't have images, if I just had text here, so I'll show you an example. Let me grab, actually, we'll just do this one. The example, if you didn't have text or images there, you would go to that source code button, which was right here, that little, the two arrows with the line there. And you just copy all of it. So I do Command A, Command C, and then when you go to your next course, you'll click on that button when you create a new HTML document and paste that in there. So it should bring that over. You can also use import export copy if that's something you would like to do as well. If you have images, you do need to use the import export copy to get that image brought over. But if it's just text, you can always just use the source code. And then just like regular piece of content, when I'm ready, I can hide this or unhide it and save and close there so that my students can interact with this. Are there any questions about elements before we take some time to go and play with this? And as you're taking the time, if you're working through some, please ask any questions that you have. But are there any questions before we start?
Bridget, there's one question in the chat, but I think this may fall under the practice component. And that was, the question came from Nancy in the chat asking if there's a way to turn off the feature for them to be able to try multiple times.
Yes, so currently, because it's meant to be just students to check their own understanding, there's no way for you to track how students have done with that practice. One thing I mentioned in the last session about Creator Plus is that Creator Plus is a fairly new tool to Brightspace. It was released in the fall. And so there's always things being added to it, updates being made. So that is a good piece of feedback. If that's something that you'd be interested in having, I can take that back to the team, but currently not right now. Your dropdown does not show practices or elements. Okay, so might still need to be turned on in your course, Katie. Darren or Morgan, I might ask if you can help with that one just to see if there's something going on with that specific course.
I can look into that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Oh, a few people don't see it. Okay, so if you're not seeing that, please pop that into the chat. We will take some time now just to practice. I'll stop my share so that you can work on your own screens. If you have any questions, please just come off mute or put them in the chat. Happy to answer anything as we're going through.
Bridget, can you, I'm sorry, share your screen again and just show in the HTML doc where we click to get an element just to make sure everybody is on the right place. Because sometimes insert stuff versus add, the add
Definitely.
button.
Yep, so just to show that again, so you'll go to Create New, HTML document. And then we have our little plus button here that says Insert Other Options. And when you click on that, you should see Insert Practice and Insert Element down here.
And Jody mentioned that she had to scroll a bit. Make sure your screen is not zoomed in. You might have to do a control minus to zoom your screen out a bit to see everything. Okay, yeah. Okay, it looks like
Perfect.
it is there.
Okay, great. Okay, I just see a question of, is there a way to send a link to your presentation so I can reread the practice and element choices so I know what I want to work on? Darren or Morgan, I believe. Okay, perfect. And also, if you are curious which ones, you can just click on the insert element piece here and you'll see all of those options pop up. And if you want to start one, it's not what you want to be working on, you can always try with other ones as well. All right, so we'll take some time for you to go around with the elements and then we'll practice our practices in a little bit as well.
Corey, let me know what course you're working in, please, in the chat, and I'll look into that. No, Corey, it shouldn't matter. I'll give me a second. I'll look in your sandbox.
Kelly, I see your question of, can we paste source code into an announcement or does it have to live in content? So currently, it does have to be within content for Creator Plus to work. Again, that's great feedback to bring back to the team. If there is feedback that you have, I'm sure Darren has been collecting lots as well, and I will make sure I get that to the team who works on Creator Plus.
Kelly, we actually did get it to work in a custom widget, but I can't remember how. But I'll make a note, Kelly, and let you know.
I see a question from Corey of, when we bring this to our fellow teachers and they have a similar problem, what would they have to do to get the Creator Plus options? Darren or Morgan, I believe, reach out to your team.
Yeah, reach out to me, Morgan, Brightspace support at acps.org. Any of those will get you to us. And but this should not be an issue. I'm looking into it, but it's shared across the district. So I'm not sure why it's not in your sandbox, but I'm looking right now. Corey, I've looked in both of your sandboxes and I don't see any content at all. So you do need to add a unit first and then add create a new HTML doc. So start a new unit first. Sorry, I just saw the message, Corey. You got it. Never mind.
There's a question of just, is there anywhere that demos what each element looks like? We have resources created by D2L that I can share, but Darren, I'm not sure if you've created a CPS specific ones.
Not for every single one, but I know, once you create them, and you save them, they look just like they will to the students in your course. So you can see it there. And there's also preview. I know for practices and elements, the preview is pretty accurate.
So for visual learners like myself that can't picture what these things should look like, I just was exploring the same thing and I dropped a link in the chat that will open up to the DTL course that actually has visual representations of every single thing in it.
Perfect. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Yes. And there's just, again, for those that are visual that might be going through this at a later time, I have some resources at the end of the slide deck, as well as screenshots of not the specific elements, but how to create the elements again if you're stuck on that later. But there's tons of resources in the community here. So thanks for finding that one, Sarah. Okay, I think we'll take just another minute and then we will start with some practices.
That's correct, Shani.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to take a look at some practices now. I know there's a lot to go through with this. We could probably spend the entire eCoach day just playing around with everything. So I'm going to show you some practices. And just to lead us into the practices, I know that there's a question about this is just for checking for understanding. That's correct. So right now, students are the only ones that can see how they've done. It's really just a student check to see how they're working. If you'd like to be able to see what students have done or their answers, quizzes would be a better tool for that. Okay, so to create a practice, I'm going to go in the same space as I was for my elements here. So HTML document, click on my little plus button, select insert practice, and then my practice options come up here. So I've got drop down, fill in the blanks, multi-select, multiple choice, sequencing, sorting, true and false. I'm going to show the drop down, fill in the blanks today because that one has a bit of a learning curve, I guess it's a little bit of a trickier one. So I just want to demonstrate that one, but on your own time, please feel free to play around with whichever ones. So when I select drop down, fill in the blanks, you'll notice that this looks very similar to the quizzes tool if you've created quizzes in Brightspace before, where we've got the preview on the right-hand side for you to see how students will see the information. I can add in my title, a short description, my instructions, all of that right there. So I'm just going to add this title as Life Cycle of a Frog, staying with our frog theme today. I can add a description here and my instructions for my students. To actually create the drop-down fill in the blanks, the way that this is going to work is you're just going to type what you would like to show up in there, and anything that you'd like to have as a blank, you're going to put 2 square brackets around. So I'll show you what this looks like. So if I say a square tadpole, so tadpole is what I would like to have in the blank there. So I'm going to put that in the square brackets. Tadpole is a baby frog. And as I'm going through this, I can update my blanks. This will show up for me over here. And then I can continue to build this out here. So I can say it grows, and then I can update my blanks there. So I've got this built out. I can continue to write as much text as I would like to, and anything that I would like as a blank, I put in these square brackets here. Now for down here, we need to identify what's the correct answer and what is not. So it is telling me that tadpole is one of the drop downs that we're going to have, but I need to know, is this a correct answer for this first blank? Is it not? So I'm going to say that tadpole is the correct answer, and then incorrect answers in this case would be the other blanks that I have. So frog and grows. And the reason for this, for having to do this, is there might be multiple answers that students could put that might not necessarily be incorrect. There might just be the correct one there. So I can go with frog here for this one, and then add in tadpole and grows. And then for grows, make my answer grows. And then incorrect is tadpole and frog. Okay, so now that I've got that built out with my correct and incorrect answers, I can see on the preview over here what a student will see. So when they go to fill in the blank, they have their drop down here, and they can try their work out. This is just the drop down fill in the blanks. You can have written text fill in the blanks if you would like as well. And you can also select how this will be scored for the students. So you can do all or nothing, correct inputs, right minus wrong inputs. So if I do the question mark here, I can see what type of scoring this would be. The difference here between our elements and our practices is with our elements, we had to select preview and then insert. For inserting our practices, we have our insert button right here. So I can select insert. That's going to pop within here. I can save and close that. And then once that loads, again, I could add as many different pieces around that content as I would like to, but this is what a student will see. So a frog is a baby grows, it tadpole. I can do that if I'm the student and see how I've done and try again if I need to, and then continue to work at this and then check my answers and see how I've done. So that's an example of one of the practices. We will take some time for you to play with the practices now and see what works for you. I just want to show the best way to copy the practices before we do this. So if you were to copy practices, the best way right now is to be in the course that you'd like to bring the item into. So if this is where I would like to bring the item in, I can go to course admin, import, export, copy components, search for offering. So here I'm going to look for the course that has the practice that I would like. And I'm just going to find the course that I know I'm enrolled in here, but you would find the course that has the practice you're looking for, go to select components. Within content, you'll select individual items to copy and leave this as checked off for the including associated files. That way you can bring in the practice there. And then when you go to continue, you'll see the content and you can bring in whichever content you're looking for there. Alrighty, are there any questions about practices before we take some time to play with this? I'm just going to take a look at the chat.
I think Darren was kind of going through and answering questions as they came up.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think one just came in. Can you create a release condition based on practices? No, I don't believe that's a choice in a release condition because it's not grading or anything. There's nothing for it to read to release something else.
That's correct. So you could set a release condition based off of students viewing that content, but not based on how they've done in that practice. Okay, so I will stop my share again and play around with any of the practices, whichever ones work for you. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Yes, I see a question just came in to see what it looks like to create a fill in the blank with the brackets. I can definitely do that. Just waiting for my screen to. Okay, awesome. So to do this, I'm just going to build it within here. So this is the drop-down fill in the blanks option. And the way that you'll do this is within this root question text box, you'll type your text and anything that you want to be a blank will be the brackets here. So if I said a frog is, and then if I wanted the word green to be in brackets, I could do that in brackets there. And then as you select update blanks, so when you click on that, your new text will pop up there. So you could write the entire text in one go if you'd like, or come through and add in little pieces as you do this. So if you find that it's a little overwhelming to go through and add the correct and incorrect answers, you could do this one at a time and update the blanks that way, and then add my correct answer of green. My incorrect answer in this case will be tadpole. Grows and frog. So I could continue to do that one there. So the best thing to do is just write in your text and add in within the 2 square brackets for the drop-down fill in the blanks. No problem. Thank you. Good question. So there's a question of further fill in the blank. Is there a way to close it so that students can only answer it one at a time? Not with practices right now. So with quizzes, if you're using the quiz tool, you could have one question be a blank and then set it so that they can't go to the next page yet. But with practices right now, it would just be one long string.
Bridget, Sarah in the chat asked when she's making the fill in the blank, it seems to be making the correct answer the top choice each time. And was wondering if that was a fluke.
That may just be a fluke, just because when I've done it, that has not been my experience. So I can share my screen again just to show you. Okay, so here mine is not the top answer is not the correct one. So that could just be a fluke that's happening. If you haven't added the incorrect answers, then the correct answer would be the only one that shows up. So you do need to make sure you add in those incorrect answers so that all options show up. So for example, you can see here I've got a frog and green is the correct answer, but all 4 show up. Whereas here I haven't added green as an incorrect answer yet, so it doesn't show up. So that could be part of it if you haven't added all of the incorrect options. Otherwise, it might just be a fluke that's happening. No problem. Thank you. All right, we'll take probably 2 more minutes and then we will come back together. All right, I'm just going to share my screen again. And I know, as I mentioned earlier, you could play with this probably forever, getting everything set up. So we do have 9 minutes left, so I just want to go through the resources that I'm going to be sharing with you and also want to leave some time for questions. So here I have a slide that links out to that course that was, or that document that was shared within the chat. So there's a link to that here as well if you'd like, and there's a course that you could go through just to play all around with Creator Plus. We've got some resources here. So some of these are D2L created resources, as well as some ACPS Creator Plus instructions here. So got some resources there for you. And then as mentioned, I just want to call out, I've got some screenshots of how to create the practices from start to finish, as well as the elements there. So this is just an example of how to get to that place. The actual individual elements and practices will be in the other documentation that was shared. All right, so I think we have 8 minutes left. I want to thank everybody so much for joining today. I will be able to take some questions now if there's any questions that you have, or if you want to use the rest of the time to finish building out some practices or elements, we can definitely do that as well.
And I'm also going to put the attendance link in the chat, so please make sure you take a minute to fill that out as well.
Awesome, thank you, Morgan.